Everybody sangha tashi dele. Tata khala ki sama. Ganju sama tashi dele so.
Rinpoche says, Tashi Delek to all the Sangha, everyone who is following us on the live stream. Then we start with opening prayers.
Manam Gadanyam Besenchen Tamje Deva Dante Donga Dada Yurdulana Mebayan Tabazo Sanjo Rinpoche Tobaso.
All matter sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All matter sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
Page 7. Ram jam jam so shen gen jor pe so ma lu lo ye lang den ber la na ten yan zho gong to jie zong de so da lu long jun to ba jin jie dang Hong Kam Jin Chen Cha De Ma Jin Da Du Zong Wen Gu Bo Jir Se Kung Ber Jie Dan Zhen Jie Wo Zhen Jie Lo Nge Dang Nge Men Ta Le Yong Zhe Yin Jian Ga Ne Song Zhou Wong Da Jie Jie Men Chen Len Den Ne Lo Men Zhan Zhou Per Vel San Jie To Ba Xin Yi Lu.
An infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms. If I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body enjoyments and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine. By offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and concepts of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial. The supreme mandala is the natural state. By offering it, may I be blessed to attain the state of Buddhahood.
Om Guru Deva Dragana Rana Mandra Bodhi Zowa. Page 10. Asem Janam Jasam Badam Loya Zedra Jadawa Jejong Dhumon Thebaye Jejang Kolo Kurduzo.
Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both, according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. So, Dharma friends, nowadays, as the world is going through many difficulties, we can't really go outside so much. We have to, stay inside. And often people maybe get tired of staying inside. And so, therefore, even though I might not really know how to teach the Dharma so eloquently, but I thought of maybe sharing some stories about my own gurus, the lamas that I personally have connected to. And that is actually also very significant. Chamgyal Kongtrul had said that the guru should be seen as the actual Buddha in human form. So the guru is a human, and so often people make these distinctions, and they say that the guru is the guru, the lama is the lama, and the Buddha is the Buddha. So they're different. But actually, if you think about it again and again, it's not really like that. As Lord Jigten Sungyan had said, the guru's mind, the Buddha's mind, and my own mind are one. So this is how you see it if you actually see how it is. So then we can say that we can actually see that the guru and the Buddha are really one and the same. Especially when you see the nature of your own mind, you can see that how the guru's mind, the Buddha's mind, and your own mind are one. And so all the gurus, for example, just take my own gurus and those I've connected to as an example, all of them, every single one of them is really a Buddha. And that is not because I'm going toward them respectfully, but it's really, they all came to me and cared for me with great love and kindness. So it's really very meaningful to hear the stories of those gurus, and that's why I'm going to continue with more guru stories. Last week we spoke more about the gurus I have met until the turmoil broke out in Tibet. I told some stories about Lama Chime Dorje. And so today I'm going to speak about the time where the turmoil actually then broke out in Tibet. And so, in generally speaking, first of all the difficulties that we encounter in this world arise from the cause, which is negative karma obscurations and negativities. And that leads to the condition, which are the obstructors and evil spirits and harm doers and so on. And they cause the result of illness and suffering. So there are different ages or kind of kalpas, so to speak, in this world. So there is the age of weapons, of starvation, and of disease. And so during that time, it was the time of weapons and disease. Weapons and starvation. Now we are really in a time of disease, in an aeon of disease. So in brief, all of these difficulties arise from karma and negativities and obscurations. So what is that cause? That is karma. It arises from self-grasping. And from self-grasping arises attachment. And from that arises stinginess or greed. And from that arises jealousy. And from that arises hatred. And as a result of that, we end up in times of disease, starvation, and weapons. And so during that time, it was a time of starvation and weapons. And so during that time, due to the force of my own karma, I ended up in prison. And so when we first were transported there, I was together with many different lamas and lay leaders and so on. And among them also was a great master Lama from Nangchen, Lama Ade Rinpoche. And then there were 7 lamas from the Nakchura. I can't read it. So the Naksho, what is it? Shabden Gompara? Shabden Monastery. Yarne Gompara. Yeah. Yarne Shabden. So the Yarne Shabden Monastery, which is from Naksho, which is close to Lhasa. So there were those 7 lamas from the Yarne temple there. And then there was Ade Rinpoche. And that's when I met him directly myself. And so actually he's, since being from Nangchen, which is the same area that I'm from, I have seen him before, but only from far away. I was never able to speak to him before that, because he's a very high lama, and I couldn't really come close to him. But at that time, so I met him directly, and so he was a lama of great kindness. He was very peaceful and very loving, like a real bodhisattva. So that is when I met Ade Rinpoche first.
Shada Zoga song the Nam, so they could later do a Tabe song. Shada Zoga me songs of the Meta, the quite song is. Tata tongue was so the Malurmo, the Dominica, Chen Yong, Natalie. Me song for a day of the Gona was stabbing young. Tata Malidi told Dominica, Chen Yong at the Sunam is the Tata. Me song getting mother, me song union whatever, the young. Thanks for something, no, I'm going to regulate Namiri, so there are so good. Do they go to the charging to her? I just asking me, come similar maybe than one was soon or the that's on her children, saying some hunger. Gentlemen among them, then I let you, then I let me. The little Doctor May was on passing way, Lama gave his name, Mambo, or Patcher. Lama Jidata Miore, Lama Traha, one zeta, Harji, the Manjata, the Messendan in the theatre, Pekam, Mento Setam, Umutar Yayore, Lama Bumbo, and Torrent to the Roman that it, Doctor Lama Mambo Paviore. The other Boji, Tata, Nana Lama Mambo Paviore, that didn't Lama Kishu, that's serious with the law. Lotte Nijini, I didn't watch it. The Lama Mangon and Tachi, thank you for my series. That is Calgary, so much in a song. There is song. There is the other about the Congo and economy, and sometimes Yasaki key or little Congrani. Then she won't say the song shut out. Others would dress out charging it, you told upon by bed and day. There is the sort of Kempo Munsel Mochi, Jarakoka, the other Mochi, Lang your head.
So at that time, we have not actually yet arrived in the prison. We were just transported there. And so at that time, along the transport, I happened to be in the same kind of sleeping area as Ade Rinpoche, and so we were able to talk. And from the Guru Lama Jime Dorje, also I had the 37 Bodhisattva practices memorized. And so within the 37 practices, he mentioned, especially at that time, he mentioned one verse, and that is Ade Rinpoche did, and he said that all the suffering of the lower realms comes from wrongdoing. Therefore, the Buddha said, never commit negative deeds, even at the cost of your life. This is the Bodhisattva's practice. So he said that the unbearable suffering of the lower realms comes from negative action. And he also said that, however, the suffering that we experience in a precious human body is actually a great merit. So the more we suffer as human beings is actually a great merit. And because it is also said that in the body of a precious human being, a single headache purifies the negativities that would cause you to wander for a long time in the lower realms. And so one might have the karma to experience suffering for a long time in the lower realms, and in a very short time as a precious human being, one purifies all of the suffering. So he said we should really rejoice in that. And what we experience is the full ripening of our own karma. So he spoke very much about, he went into great depth in his teachings on karma. So we were in this same sleeping area, and he gave many instructions. And so then finally we arrived at the actual prison in the Xining area, which is like a more of a higher security prison, where all the higher lamas and also the lay leaders and so on from the various areas of central Tibet and Amdo and Kham and so on, all of them came together. There were about 400 or so lamas and also leaders and so on. For example, there were lamas and chant masters and different monks and so on, and especially those with whose name were kind of known, like leaders and so forth. So we arrived in the prison, and about a year or two or so later, I asked Ade Rinpoche, like in the prison, there's so many lamas, but which one of them is the most precious one? And he said, of all of them, really, and he said that in secret to me, it is Kempo Munsel Rinpoche. You should really meet him. And so also at that time, sometimes I happened to be in the same sleeping area as Ade Rinpoche. And also he himself had received instructions from Kempo Munsel Rinpoche and wrote these down secretly in the form of notes that he kept hidden. So anyways, it was really him who gave me the kind of first opportunity. He kind of made me meet with Kempo Munsel Rinpoche.
샤속 마시냐 요만 컴송콩 내장단 컴송레스 지롱자는 요들이 파스 패널들이 생가르니 살아는 생리 좀 이제니 파는디 당 온통자 팬들 야라야 요만 베데서 나사요리 이 작하고 되는 내 바탕저 딱제다 같이 걸라마요 요래 망보요리 때 같이 안 같이 나사때서 좀 속으니 요사리 대답을 갑라면 잡더니 나나사금도 이 구선 창돌 또 나타나는 자 대를 백깔에만 보자더니 레간도 터제 상태 레간도 고고리 들그리 레간도 마술 네파탈에 좋고요리 이렇게 보면 저러가 그저 가야 딱지 땅요를 다시 샤죠 어디리 그 보면서 딱지 땅이 로팅이면 거기 샤자티 야 이정나 참네 대저거더니 로니셜 탈마세 받더니 야 인용 말이 로니쇼가 다 다른 다 롱에다 다치탐으로 늦어서 옮겨놓더니 다 화고hen이 종화 책종참아 막 요구 화고hen 약합 화고hen 부모면 이제 내가 화수시지 당하고 부모 당하고 신지 키우고 모두 동생들이 되게 하고서만 그래서 내가 좀 책동 수좀 참아 떠오르다 땅에 들콩 남자야 이게 이 팩트 강만 나타 직장 요 말이 대다는 하지 세남다 때려리 이 남의 요구 값을 나타다 참아는 속기니 청와양 통촉을 요 말이 이 많은 로르더니 뭐 가게 달리냐 가라 되더니 무슨 고치바 탐지 딱 영전이 지지 이바게 어디미 게바티 만을 놓고 요리인다 올라오나 딱 그 양장양도 딱 때리들이 무슨 총부지 요리 락시라고 하니 락시 맞으니 그거 다 저거를 맨지스데 총바래 이 코리 네 고치 용들이 네 체랑이 참 만을 놓고도 가인지 코 컨트롤 챔버 요리 딱 혹시라서 사람들이 라상 고를 고치 치모르데 코가 카스텀데 요리 많은 분이 혼자 엄마네 베미 홍조고 카데고래 장 들어 시금다 파트장을 인도 고치 고는 문에 고도지 들 고도지 가라는 구출이 구조자가 되지 쭉 카스텀도 돼 문에 쭉 카스텀 네 구조자가 되지 코 미셔 마찬가지 게 구조자가 그랬다 나 시어 말이 중하다도 세고 다른 중하대로 뛰모시 거지 저랑 판탐공 투바다 가다다 세고 장면 다다들 드링코 파송들이 연락자답디 그때도 어디 대도 배시자 다시 여기라서 뭐 통조만 정말 통조만 카르나티 많은 비명라고도 대도 망고지에 대시에야 드링 김범마서 아들 뭐지 김범마서를 뭐지 공병 막 종리주의 답답 들어가서 요래 이 차와디 다체 주체로 그리자 다 팔리게 매바탄 김봉성 민주의 주체로 성들이 김봉성은 그 턱이 성네 아들 뭐지 상황이네 공수리다 진짜 남들이 기마디 다 서로 패터지 서로 애들이 김봉성은 거 성게 이게 저 토어디 기본만 정그 기본만 새게 송 아들을 뒤자리데 네가 떠오는 당 서로는 내가 설레 우리 대 파쇼다게 저거 당 기본만 새게 송지 딱 그래 아들 보자 하래송 대너만 통문용서 기본만 새게 니줄 그래서 공통 토비 송에 남용다 남남다 대너 이 창문이 대러 송파
For Kempo Munsel Rinpoche's his outer life story, so he was in prison, but he was one of the sick people, like in that area. So basically, this entire time that he was in prison for 20 years, he actually never had to work. He was just basically sitting cross-legged the entire time, and so he had these crutches made out of these wooden crutches that he could only get up on these crutches, and otherwise he couldn't. He was unable to walk. His legs were basically crippled, or so they thought. So at that time, the officials would examine everyone who claimed to be sick and unable to work. So because there were obviously often people who tried to fake a sickness, were not really sick and really able to work. So then they would take these people and really examine them and give them all kinds of injections and examine them all over until finally their lie was exposed. And then they, of course, had some difficulties. And then basically whoever was able to work had to work. And it was really hard to hide that from them. But with Kempo Munsel Rinpoche, it was different. For the entire 20 years, he basically claimed to be sick and crippled in his legs and he couldn't work. And no one ever actually examined him. They just took his word for that. And they said, he must be right. And so no one actually looked into that. And so the entire 20 years, he actually never had to work. And they just saw him walking on his crutches this entire time. And so basically he couldn't get up. He never got up all this time for 20 years. until 1979 when he was released. And so at that time, actually when he was released in 1979, he basically just got up and walked out of prison. And that was the time when Chinese president released everyone from the prison. And so then he was released along with others, and he just instantly got up without any signs of being crippled and just walked out of prison. So that's his outer story. And then also regarding inside the prison, when we were in the prison, so we were, people were always monitored for a Dharma practice. So we were obviously not allowed to hold the mala and count mantras, and we were not even allowed to say Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. And so often the officials would walk around and look at the older people and see if they were chanting or kind of silently, secretly reciting the Mani mantra. And so when it kind of looked like somebody was moving their mouth or was reciting the Mani mantra, then they told them, "What are you doing? You're reciting the Mani mantra." And so there was one prisoner who was a business person from Nangshan. He was a bit of a kind of feisty person, and so he was confronted by one of the prison officials, and so the official accused him, "You're reciting the Mani mantra." And so he was this prisoner, the Tibetan, was quite feisty, and he kind of thought that if I die, I die. And he said that, "Don't you know that in order to say the Mani mantra, you have to say Om Mani Padme Hum, so you have to move your lips and your mouth. Have you seen my mouth moving? I haven't moved my mouth. So you don't know how to recite the mantra even." And so then the official said that, "But then I've seen your neck moving. So when this part of your neck is slightly moving, it means that you're actually reciting something glottally in your neck." But then the prisoner said that that's just like my life vein moving. It's a sign that I'm alive. I'm not dead yet. So that's why that's moving here. Basically, they were fighting, and he said that just take me, just kill me. And so he was just basically handcuffed at that time. So this is basically how the situation was in prison. We were not allowed to read any scriptures, have any scriptures, or have a mala in our hands, or recite any mantra like the Mani mantra. And so Kempo Munsel Rinpoche, together with other Rinpoche, so Kempo Munsel Rinpoche had the collected tantras of the oral lineage of the Nyingma tradition, had it memorized. And so he spoke it, and other Rinpoche would secretly take notes and write it all down. And it all came really from Kempo Munsel's mind, from his memory. And so it was all written down by Adi Rinpoche. And then later, when we were released from prison, then we received this notebook that was really Kempo Munsel's instruction, written down by Adi Rinpoche, or his memory of these teachings. And it was really quite amazing how accurate Kempo Munsel had it all in his mind, and how it really, when you compare it back to the original, it was really, Adi Rinpoche was quite amazed. It was really precisely matching that. So when he spoke that from his memory. So that is how Kempo Munsel kind of preserved the Nyingma kind of lineage oral instructions.
독자 탐바 지금 독자 사이 사요 수 누가요 말이들이 나한테 나송들이 탕 오마디 탕고 이거를 동강 최종 이거를 오마들은 민강자 전부를 민강은 막 땅송에 되는 민강은이다 담민만 칼라베 요리 들이 니마를 들이 민만 신도도 들이제리다 가장 시장 전부지 랑성 인랑 다고 단딘적으로 되는 마디의 역사를 해서 칼라틱 사나네 양짜들이 도호도를 빼다 칼라도 공도도 빼 도호도 다 파셔의 약사에서 저랑 내려뜨리는 거 담자때 이런 거 조고조고 망보여 능력이 좀 먹고 능 강바적이는 이때라는 게 쌍마천이랑 칼라티 머리를 파티 맞아는 게 탱직적 상사 막 칼라마상 싸워라 또야면서 다들 롱 빨아 롱 감이야 라비오래 롱바 대대는 강이나 다서 칼라바다 또야면서 이 칼라디 상마천이 맞는 파 리리테 이 맞지를 거서 나가 칼라 체데 양 거서 내 반은 대해서 조각 잡소 조각 잡소면더니 조각 전에 엠책 하고서 엠책 하고서더니 다능이 약해지지 저요래 만남들 손다리 파이 접고 말레지 그리고 있는 남들이 드니 제가 파 저들이 지금 당함자고 저는 따지나 미니사 토크 요말 그 제대로는 나게 갈아파대 때 네바 참아들이 네바 참아나 지금 가고요래 옛날에더니 내가 좀 좋아졌더니 엔초방 원래 엔초방 뭔가 저거 파시 적대가 저거 배 좋아다 저거 저거 차들이 저거 저거 차들이 따창 하나 사고 그랬더니 어서 타근다고 되니 사토고 매트 denite 당시 몰라서 강의들이 작합적 말이 정보적 말이 때가는 자만 출시 니가 몇 받던지 니로 담아 똑같이 니근이 산지된 바식 생기들 단데 진짜 참아는지 근데 매고서리 기랑적으로 랑좀 드니지는 아직도 가만은 야 드니 맞아거든요 당고치 체슈지 그러나 그게 당연히 있어서 고치 동항민하는 고치 체슈지 저 패죠 이제 막 그다시요 될 것을 거리 내 고치 체슈지 맞다는 하고 그래 맞다 내 맞다 네 약이 신인 걸 두고 나중에 봐주고 내가 가리라고 그러지 맞다 저리 좀 기사 저거지 맞다 저리 좀 기사 또 기사지 약게 나오려고 너 보고서 맞다 당들 맞다 저리들 나한테 또 기사지 저렇게 당 거지 그게 나한테 팔라 맞다 저리 쪽샤 네 아 인철라고 라 니는 엔터만 보여라. 엔터들 막 발라고 그러라. 다 하고서. 하고 니 마트라 패송. 마트라 패송. 야, 다 같이 쉬고 간단히 이봐 칠리 야가다. 딱 광선 거치 치고 콩내 고 농거도. 농토면 당할 때 나산 야랑토고 용어라. 내가 깨작 같이 오지 마거지. 근데 야 잠깐을 해줘. 가서 내가 칼리도 너무 파다. 러러러들이 타자지 따위 거라. 거기 뭐게 손이지. 들이 인터넷을 아설적 들이. 들고 사지가 따대 뉴발레시. 대들이 사칸나는 데디 가베게 빨아데 양고 칼라존이 코 zu고야고 요래 약합게 양 칼라존이 마치 잘 야요래 마치 20대는 요래 되지 좀 하도 일자요래 하더니 들이나 로욕다 티다로 척담 요말이 들이 커서 강고 나치고 강반을 야 강고 찍는 야 들이 요말이지 그 강고 찍는 자들 마트가 되게 딱고 부게 신이 로사 아무것도 상시요래 대치면 이 코 동성 주가르는 코 동성세 지성 된 잠블린들이 단들 도고 돈이들이 요말이 취지 되지더니 되는 다 들나가 다 셔가 디스 칼라상하데 누메 되라래 파라 들이 코그 뭐 치랑의 빠요래 마요래 창배를 빠짱보래 얘는 치랑 싫어 야고 오면 치랑 마시는 야가 요래 다 마시나지 나그 치랑 동요래더니 치랑 장 동능한이 받쳐보래 내 아타는 공치는 메다자 세그래 상가 세자는 거 세자를 가사리지 말이 호 동네를 가야 돼 밤에지 치랑 공치 땅나 컨트롤치 보요베 공치 땅나 자데 코를 잡으면 티 추바라 네 맛에 네 바라 추 맛에 나니가 소바 가요 말이 나니 소바 찍다요 말이 대들이 공치 땅나 자데 코를 잡아래스 그래서
So then in around 1960 or 1961 or so, I'm not so sure about the exact time, but around that time I got really very sick. And so there were two sections of the prison. There was this like upper and lower section, and in the lower section of the prison there was the hospital. So that's where they sent me, in the prison's hospital. And there were a lot of really very sick people. Many people died every day. So it was quite frightening there. And so when I was there, I had that thought that I'd rather die. I better not live. And so finally, I made up my mind that I will stop eating food. Because also I realized that when I just eat a little bit of food, then I would be so hungry quickly. But if I don't eat any food at all, then I wouldn't be so hungry. And it would be better to die. So I stopped eating food, and my share of food I divided among my kind of cell or kind of roommates. There were 7 of them. And so I shared whatever food I got with them secretly. So I gave each one of them a little bit of food every time. And I stopped eating, and I also didn't feel hungry. Also, it's because my father in the past had taught me how to kind of retain the winds, and in that way extract the essence of winds. So I didn't feel hungry when I didn't eat, and I shared my food with those other sick people. And so then at some point, they started to fight a little bit over the food, and the doctors found out about that me sharing my food with them because they were fighting over it at some point. And so there was actually one person who knew Chinese. He was also from the same area, from Shonda, where I'm from. Before in the past, he also was an official, and so anyways, he could speak both languages. And so anyways, I really wanted to give them the food out of compassion for them. But then anyways, one day they started just fighting over it. And because of that, the doctors found out, and many doctors came. And so then they constrained me. And anyways, I was already quite in a very poor physical state. I couldn't really actually get up anyways. But anyways, they constrained me. And they said, you're not eating. And so I said, I'm not eating anymore. And really inside my mind, inside I really felt actually at that time quite angry, because it's what this communist regime has done is not just one country, not just one city or one area, one town, but really for the entire world. They are destroying through this ideology the Dharma and also the worldly ways. And so in my mind, they really were what we call like kind of an enemy in whom the 10 grounds are complete. Those beings who cause a lot of harm to the Buddha's teachings and also to sentient beings, to all sentient beings. So at the time I was angry, and I thought it would be better to, if they wouldn't exist, it would be better to just destroy them. Anyways, that's how I felt at that time. And so they constrained me, and they put me in a single cell, so all by myself. And so I was then told that Betty's one friend from Shonda who also knew Chinese and Tibetan. So he said that there is the leader of the hospital who wanted to talk to me. So then I asked him, how do I say bring him here in Chinese? And so then my friend taught me how to say that. I don't know how to say that. Whatever that was, bring him here in Chinese. So Rinpoche said it in Chinese. So anyways, that's what I said. As I bring the leader of the hospital here, I said that in Chinese, and then they brought him here. And then they also had this person I knew who was translating. And so he came, and so he asked me, so we talked, and I told him that I basically thought that if I would hit, to myself I thought, if I would do something really bad, then they would kill me. Anyways, I was lying there in my bed, and I was very weak, and I couldn't get up, and I really wanted to punch him actually, but I couldn't move. So I asked him, I have to tell you something, come closer. And then he came a little closer, and I said, even closer, I can't talk. So I came closer, he came closer and closer, and when he was really close, I first spat in his face, and then I punched him. And after I punched him, he started laughing. And the doctors came and they constrained me again, and they said he's crazy, he's lost his mind. And so actually at that time, we also had the kind of the kitchen in the prison, and one of the cooks was actually Gape Lama's father. And generally the cooks had a little, they were in a better physical state because they had more food to eat. So of 400 prisoners, there were about 40 cooks or so. And so anyways, later that's where I ended up. But so anyways, coming back to the story. So then I punched him, and they restrained me and said I'm crazy. And so then he brought this translator, the Tibetan whom I knew, to help him translate. And he asked me, so you hit me, so why did you hit me? Why did you beat me? And then I said that it's, so I am, in whichever way you look at it, this regime is causing a lot of harm to the Dharma and to beings. I didn't want to be alive. I just stopped eating, and I thought it would be better to die. And I thought if I hit you, then there's nothing worse than that. That's a great offense. And then certainly I'm going to be killed. That's why I punched you. And again, he was laughing, and he felt, oh, you poor thing. You have a father, you have a mother, you're very smart. It's better if you don't die. And I know why you punched me. You punched me because you wanted to die. You didn't punch me because you have a personal issue. You punched me because you are angry at the communist regime. You thought I will be angry if you punch me and then kill you. So that's really what I was, what I told him, and that's what what he understood. And he said, however, I understand. However, it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't really harm me if I'm not upset. I'm not angry that you punched me. I know why you punched me. It's not because of we have a personal issue. It's not that because I killed your father or you killed you killed my father and so on. We have no personal issue with each other. You punched me because you are angry with the communist regime. And so that's why I cannot be angry at you.
코긴 타바리 삼세의 말들이 나야 랑마트 받으리 그 딱와자 이 말을 거라자 로타 체롱들이 다 시험게 칼라 사로지 나 칼라 마사와 말이 계속 못이는 칼라 맞대 말이지 미망고 시험에는 통도 왜 말이도 정사는 매사가 같이 살았대고 그런 매사리 같이 받아 마시는 거 사람이 또 처음 같이 살았대고 꼭 얘기 들으고 그 정신하게 담아서만데 꼭 카라카레 살았대고 카라팅지어리 네바 양모라 팅섬이어리 내리 joala 팅제어리 내리 joala 팅 some nga yore 지가들이 등쪽 가라 등쪽 잠들 요래 셔리들이 가라 등쪽 저게 요래 내가들이 장작들이 강야야들 자치시 들이디 포도타나서 버티기 요래 주로 sama 등쪽도 sama 채널 가지고 떼고시 거기 있지 들이 가라 적사 가라 스위치 들 맞으러 똑하도 내 도면도 가라 맞이 야자들 들 가라 스위치들 뭐 나왔거든 람쌍들이 그 일말이 꼬라자들이 평택과 그 삼지 샘표로 자서 그 가는 게 아니지 이 고통을 있어 이제로 들가 들리는데 대사 잘해 되고지 말을 못지 소금을 하더니 녀들들이 밥지 동게 나와 밥지 나 심심하고 요거는 이더니 거리 서울탕한 감로를 해 저걸로 뛰더니 소상가 뛰니 소상가 제샤 저 타바지 내 바꾼 저 장식으로 주리스 네 담보고 제통나 송리 공기들을 두고 달랬어 바도 고송한 거 쪽으로스 타마코생 나요레스 드림이 강화야 미강화야 뭐 로지직 빠직 땅을 리도 당하이 좀 말해서 나냠들이 내야다지 나지 자세 그래서 정말 냠들이 그래서 공개 다 되는 창은 남다 창제 빠지록 다 동동스 공개해서 너는 나로지 이제 빠지록 살아서 땅아 참아들이 이만 나도로 쌈띠를 고야 때공 세상 살아서 딸이가 그래 다고 싸무사지 뛰는 줄이야지 이 중앙난들은 라만 도트치는 뭐지 요래 도트치는 뭐지 양창나게 칼라사거도 들 칼라사로지서 장송 그자시지 들 나송 도치는 뭐지 들 뭐지 다이 시라 이로지 sen지도를 욕을 야가래 강아대로 세제제디 다양한 랑송 야야야야 송콩들 발에 방법 보면 들이 공개 대세지 들 공들이 대세지 마지 들 공식송 도트치는 뭐지 저거 요래 내가 들이 ten고만 알려드리 Kempo Munsel 랩송스 Kempo Munsel ten고만 내 가성을 빨리 가래서 맞췄을 알려버려 하고서
중간 영어 So this official who was the leader, he really had a lot of compassion for me, and really he really had sincere love from his heart. And I was still in a very bad shape at that time, and he really took care of me, and he came by every day, and he said, "You have to eat." And I said, "It's not that I don't eat, but you guys don't give us anything to eat. Look around. There are so many people dying of starvation here. Can't you see that? It's not that we don't eat, but we don't get anything to eat." And so then he said that I will give you food. Will you eat it? And I said that if you want me to eat, you have to give me as much as I can eat. Then I will eat it. If not, then I won't eat it. So then he wrote an official letter for those cooks in that kitchen, and he said that whatever he's asking for, give him however much he wants. And so generally, so in the hospital, in prison, there were different levels of kind of how much food a sick person would get. So if one was mildly sick, then one would get 3 portions a day. And if one was a little more sick, then one would get 4 portions a day. And then if one was extremely sick, 5, or at the verge of death, 6 portions a day. So that official then, the leader, said, give him as much as he wants. And so he wrote this letter. So I got all the 6 portions for each of, so I got each portion of each sick person, what they would get, basically. So I was basically eating all the time. And the moment I didn't eat, I felt hungry again. So I was eating a lot, and day by day, I got better. So after 1 month, I was completely better and was able to get up again. And so he really had a lot of love for me, and his mind was quite laid back, and he really came by every day and cared for me. And I was really wondering why it is that he had so much compassion for me. Later, what he did is that I was after the prison. Then what this official apparently secretly did is he wrote down like a tanka, almost like a painting. He wrote, like, he made pictures. He made paintings of each of the things that basically happened to me in prison. It's like he called it like the 16 enlightened deeds of the sick person, Guncho Gyamtsen, which is myself. And so he wrote, he painted like almost like a mandala tanka and so on an image. He painted different images where he wrote in picture form, where he painted my story basically. So the first one was, so this is how he first got fought, and then he got arrested, and then he got sick, and then this is how he came to the hospital, and so on. So looking at the pictures later, it really was exactly my story. And first I thought that's probably not me, but then they said there was one called from Nangchen Chinle Gunkyap. We were together, and so he said, oh, he was the son of the Nanjing king, right? That's not the son of the Nanjing king, Chinle Gunkyap. And so he said that what he painted is your story in the 16 deeds of your story in prison. And so at that time, so now coming back to the when was that? So we don't know. Yeah, we don't know when he. So it was around that time when I was still in there that he painted these pictures, and so then I was still in the hospital and was able to come out again. So I put on my working clothes, and before I left, there was also a sick Lama Dzogchen Rinpoche, and I went to him, and he also did not eat. And so I encouraged him to eat and said, Dzogchen Rinpoche, please eat. For the sake of sentient beings, this is also what happened to me, and now I'm also better, and I can get up again. And he says, okay. And so he had this pile of bread there, and he ate some of that, but then still later, soon he did pass away. So anyways, then I came out of the hospital, and coming out of the hospital back to the working prison, where I then met Kempo Munsel Rinpoche.
야, 빵절 시선전에 된 어때는 저런 라세 라니 소디마 시계도 얘네들이 처음부터 똑같이 먹고는 남절발에서 얘네 시이제 빵절 시선은 시골에 정시당 정보라는 감이 나디 자 소리 당창 나세당 세상을 감이 또 나디는 되요만 나냐만 내면들이 갑자기 시당을 먹어 벌써 열람 막다는 장시랑이 가다 공작 정성무시도 장랑 내lok주는 남인으로 다 주공들을 때리 잡고 다니니 매가 니된 천랑에서 니시당 권리다 뭐 어때 영당하는 뜻배피서 뭐 남리 파사사요 이 남도를 가가지 삶았다는 그랬다 다들 고치되게 공안인 탁발은 hin제제바가는 무슨 때다로요 다산시게 들어와서 삼년제 그 조용과도 코콘치다는 나코시랑 거래 옛날 그 삼년제를 뛰는 것은 rollo 창을 시대는 따뜻한 힘보는 것처럼 다른 놈이 뒤들이 내리 힘받고 오면 독서들이 들이 양당도 힘보는 것이 더 때는 문제들이 제당 남서 시바 이 차송 들이 기본 거지 똑같이 건물 세당 최고 주로 거래 다처하고 차송송 대송 그때 당나 공을 자책만 되는 자리 들이 대 지서들이 왔다 대처청.
So then I returned and I came into the presence of Kempo Munsel Rinpoche. And so he had already heard about my story of what happened in the hospital. And so he said, I heard what you did. You punched that official. And I said, yes, I did, Rinpoche. I punched him. And so then Kempo Munsel Rinpoche said, you've learned how to take suffering as the path. And so then he introduced me to the abandoning, the transforming, and the knowing, which is the 3 levels of the path of practice. And he said that you know the 37 bodhisattva practices. You really are a Dzogchen yogi. Knowing is that but you have to understand. You have already abandoned and you have transformed. Now you have to know. Knowing means, from the Vajrayana perspective, you have to see the essence of your hatred. But then the reason why you got angry at that official is not because of self-grasping, but out of concern for others, you gave up even your concern for your own life. And you felt, if they kill me, they kill me. There was no self-grasping and no thought of what will happen to me. But you were angry. So in that moment of anger, instead of looking at the person or what had made you angry, look at the essence of the anger itself. Meditate. You know the nature of the mind. You know how to meditate. So when the anger arises, look at the nature of this anger and realize that self and other do not exist, are not separate. This dualistic perception of self and other is delusion. So in this way, through anger, really, he introduced me to the teachings of Dzogchen. And that really benefited me greatly. It really was an instruction to take the affliction as the path. So in the beginning, before I received these teachings, I kind of thought of the practice and my work as separate. So on the one hand, there was the practice, and on the other hand, there was the work I had to do. But then it was first through that official that I punched, actually, that I transformed according to the bodhisattva path, because I was angry at him and I punched him, but instead he actually had great compassion for me and he loved me. And that caused my mind to become a bit more relaxed. So this is why we say in the bodhisattva path, we transform the afflictions through love and compassion. So I'm angry at him, but my anger was transformed through his love and compassion. That's how my mind calmed down. And so this is what I learned from Kempo Munsel Rinpoche. And he said that there is nothing else necessary to practice. There is no separate practice that is separate from the work you do. In this way, putting these teachings into practice, I learned how to take anger as the path. So Kempo Munsel Rinpoche said to me, and really in the Dzogchen path, where we particularly take anger as the path, you are the perfect candidate for such practice. And so now you turned out really well. Now you know how to take anger as the path.
대 라마 등거 잘라요. 드리지 콩그지 초포당을 하고도 내가들이 초 도마스요 초 세마가라는 말 라면들이 다스지로 드리가서 합다 마 땅낭동 콘셉트에서 드리가 콩이 지치라면 좀 저것들라 이런 데이지서들이 되니 이 콩강연체 이 콩강연체들이 콩칸이 따뜻한 번만 저렇게 저걸 땅중을 남아는 때 칼이 셔서 약합라 약합이 마시브 단지 받침 버리시 오 많이 찍도 못 나와 들다 대지들이 콩 넘버 짜라 딱 동역해 봐도 요래 엄마 자식마 로장님 만드는 자식가 말아 공고 자식마 들 혼남되는 마상 강바 차송 들이 이 공시당 나라 벌써 항상 쪽이래 들이 코종역해 버리 들이 다때 들이 아시는데 달라만 탐지를 달 동대 다도 거지 MTK 짱제스게 미호래 충기미지 라만나베 인체 대고 짱제스게 미호래 코종 항상 쪽이라 들이 대게 라마드한테 닦고 자고 그렇고 설물을 자지 들이 코시 다 라마한테 다 탑주고나 약합과 미니멈 건로 소등 로마로 소정절했지 산이 주든 탑주 동작 제사지 이 쿨라를 설당 나오시 코기 딱 해봐 당시 이 주든 동동동 이 시선 코기메 코기메 커지 시초고요만 라마 보고 들이 이제 참자들이 탑 가려야 돼 다리 임체되게 딱 거도 니바 켈리 제조 니바 켈리 제조들이 대지를 죽어서 동작들은 저거 말해야지 다리 땅게 그 매화대가 제일 나오는데 다리 자식마 로장님한테 콩나만 냠대로 콩콩들이 콩들이 있다 다른 잠적이 니바 켈리인데 이게 그냥 지고 막못 주의사래 대질이 이게 찍고 고추선 라마 탐질래 그자 특시하고 좀 그냥 좀 말이야. 이야, 당연히 자네 잡고 좀 못나나 소요래. 뒤에다 못 때문에 탑성 당연히 가래 세나 라키면서 그래서 우리가 마치 당연하지 마세는 못 저기 막못 주게 돼서 진짜 거야 하면서 다들 이제들 내가 녹음을 나타지 자요 말이야. 진짜 하고 당연히 뒤에다 못 때문에 다시 와 되지. 내가 할래서 되는 사람이 싸면 남다 약간 한 마을이 망보요래 될 때면 단톡 참아더니 내가 동걸로 계속 펴서다 남다 때도 이번 다치 모르더니 같이 해토요 말했지 남지 샤송 때마치 콩 남바 탐실 아주 육제니 탐시 되게 뭐라 쓰지로 이바 코도 뭐라 팔로 야 코도 답도 동들 탑송을 드리타들 아마서 동강만 남타 로지타 랍지티 이제 총총배 망보요래 하래야 요래 너너스 강난이 맞지는 기본만 써야 보면 되네 그 공용로 말 콩레가 되는거지 주장장시 요래 이 장장을 저기요래 콩을 가는 능야되는 말 남지 시야도 없어 되더래
그 종견이
소고를 잘하고 하고라 소고도 하고 그 콩강에 제대로 안 되게 간 소송아 이러면 맹세해 줘 말이 이러면 맹세해 줘 말이
Okay. So then later, when we came even closer to like the real kind of cultural revolution. So, anyways, there was one time where it was the 10th day of the lunar month, which is the Guru Rinpoche day, and so at that time, Kempo Munsel Rinpoche and Ate Rinpoche and Achung, Achen, Tenzin Gyamtso, another Lama, and then basically there were 7 great high Lamas together, and so they met on that day. Those 7 Lamas met on that day together to accumulate 100,000 7-line prayers to Guru Rinpoche, of course in secret, and that was then followed by a Dzog offering. And so at that time I was together with an official, and there was a Tulku. He was a Tulku, and so we went there. There were 7 people, and we received some of their blessing, which was consisted of the Dzog, right, of sugar and butter, and so on. And so basically, we knew about this Dzog offering, which was actually secret. So also this Tulku knew about the Dzog offering, and so at that time already when we left, I kind of didn't trust that Tulku. And then later on, he ran into some trouble, and then it slipped out of his mouth, and he told them that they actually had this Dzog offering and secretly accumulated the 7-verse application to Guru Rinpoche. And that's, of course, a huge offense in prison. It's because, as I mentioned, one cannot even recite the Mani mantra. So that is a very big offense that could be like a death sentence. And so at that time, and then there was a secretary who was Tibetan, right? And yeah. So he was a Tibetan, and he was a great scholar actually too. And he ended up in the prison and also in the hospital in prison because he fell from an airplane, from kind of an air force or so. He fell out of an airplane and he broke his legs, and so he was the kind of secretary there, and in that hospital. And so then the doctors were brought together to issue kind of a letter and to say that actually they had no fault, that actually basically they did not perform this Dzog offering and did not perform this secret practice, kind of miraculously, even though that one Tulku actually snitched on them. But then they did not even looked into that and didn't basically say anything, and then did not issue this letter. So they were then in the end not accused of any wrong. And so then basically there was also those doctors who accepted that he was a sick person without ever even investigating him. And they were not even allowed to beat them or physically harm them in any way. So basically none of them were accused of any wrongdoing. And this was really quite a miracle to me. And I thought about this line in the prayer for excellent conduct, where it says then that even the legions, the armies of Mara and Tirthikas cannot defeat them. And this is really how it was. No matter what they did, nobody could defeat them, could defeat him, Kempo Munsel Rinpoche. So on the one hand, for example, he was actually not sick at all, but somehow he ended up not having to work all these 20 years, and nobody said anything about it or analyzed or investigated him. And then they had this secret talk and the practice. Even though actually it was exposed, still nothing happened. And actually, in the end, it fell back on that Tulku. Somehow he actually got into trouble later on, the accuser himself. So later in 1979, when we were released from prison, then basically Kempo Munsel Rinpoche, even though, according to the laws then, there was a great offense, nothing had ever happened to him, and he just walked out of prison and he died a natural death. So that was Kempo Munsel Rinpoche's story. And there's many more stories. This is just a short story. There's many more really incredible stories about him. So this is just an example of how he was able to remain completely unharmed this entire 20 years without having to work, without having without being really accused of any offense. And he spent this whole time sitting cross-legged and teaching the Dharma and even writing them down. And nothing had ever happened to him, and he left prison and he died a natural death.
가래나 고도 저거 제통도 되나 좀 무슨 뭐지나 론이셔라 깡바 차바시 내리 알아도 깡바 치죠 뭐지다 론이셔 대잖아 깡바 샤도 그러가 지금 손에 배다다 때도 내가 양깡바 고바가 샤도 되리 이거 많은 좀 구초고만에 고도 특징에서 좀 멈터지도 오는더니 저도요 대양 지마자 하고 거네 약간 뭐 고도 니바 클립에 약오래 되면 가야 제마다들이 담아 같은 탈신이들이 몰라 또 항내 파트너들이 치료 걸로 자체 먹고 이제 파트를 하고 그래 다다다 도톰에 파트너들이 다다 랑그 따블라만 하면 돼 따블들 아마 자치면 자요래 대탑제 때는 오 다서 뭐좀 몰라는 길에 이때 따블라만 계시니 장망 뭐요래 라미 용띠 통나 때는 거를 못지 숨발이 로지 조배 당한지 로지 듣는 들이 sem들이 미기도 고쳐야 그래 당고 어떤 심말시 받아지 용띠 통에 대바제데 로지 조배 당한지 용띠 통에 대바제데 들이 이 제시 대표서 함정도 들 나와서 집에 취되래 뭐 조선도 다 사치고 그래 찾아서 받아서는 진짜 못하나 이거네들이 something tamchel 대신 좀 보여 봐도 고쳐도 그래 이 제시제 대표서 함정도 로 채상다잖아 사바드 이 제시제 대바다 뭐지고 그래 라망 통고선들이 라망 민바를 뭐라도 지나 들 추바라도 연거리 라마 잠보줄 뭐 충동질들 뭐 맞지들이 저나 가요 또 뭐를 대바다 다낭 뭐를 알아봐래 송 동대송 말이 때때는 필요치 뭐 용거리다 당신 뭐만 쓰는 모델 대바는 망보요래 도톰해 봤으나 대단지 남탕문에 됐지라 그때 핀바를 대중학을 하고 주로 담질라 그들은 다시 들을
So what is the really important point that we should keep in mind when hearing that? Now all of the, when we think about the enlightened activities of these great masters, like Kempo Munsel Rinpoche, he spent 20 years in prison, didn't have to work, and then just got up and left like nothing had happened. And in fact, other people, if they would sit for 20 years, even if they're not crippled first, they would be crippled afterwards, because sitting for 20 years would cripple you. And so he remained completely unharmed in either way. And also others were not even allowed to move their mouths reciting the Mani mantra. And they together had accumulated 100,007 line supplications together with the Dzog, and nothing happened. So the government officials, not only did they not accuse them of an offense, they even praised them for being really great. And so then later, he was released. We were all released from prison, and Kempo Munsel Rinpoche then turned the wheel of Dharma extensively, taught the Dharma extensively. And really, this is the root guru, the kind of root guru that I have met. And really, the greatest guru, I thought, in all of Tibet, whether it's Utsang Kama Amda and so on. And it's really just like in the prayer for excellent conduct, his enlightened activities. And there were many lamas like that. So what's the benefit of hearing that? And Guru Rinpoche had said that when you hear the story, then a clarity or a clear inspiration arises in you. And through that, slowly your mind can open up. And when a mind opens up, the grasping at a concrete reality and your clinging thoughts diminishes. And then Guru Rinpoche says, and then by seeing the qualities, faith arises. And when trusting faith arises, the blessings enter your mind. And so this is really why the Buddha's teachings, the three jewels, have become so widely renowned. And they're so significant to us in this life, future lives, and in the Bardo, if you really think about it. Because through hearing about these masters and receiving their blessings, the Buddha nature that all sentient beings possess can be awakened or open up. So by cultivating trusting faith, blessings will enter one's mind. And when the mind is free of doubts, then one's wishes will be accomplished. So regarding this trusting faith, so Kempo Munsel said that it means that you must have devotion. Also he said that, and many lamas say that if you have great devotion to an inferior, a bad lama, you will become the best Dharma practitioner. However, if you have little devotion to a great lama, then no blessings will enter your mind still, because mainly it depends on your own devotion, your own faith, your own pure perception. So this is what he had also told me. Kempo Munsel Rinpoche had said, really, faith and devotion the guru devotion is really what's most important. And it has benefited me greatly, and that is why I thought that if I share these stories with you, Dharma friends, it will also benefit you. So Dashi Delek for today. And so when you hear the stories of various gurus, lamas, then faith and devotion increases. And so personally, that is why I find it was very important. That's how it really benefited myself. And now, generally, you can really look at read the life story of any guru that you are devoted to yourself. For example, you can look at the life story of Guru Rinpoche or Milarepa. For example, when I saw Milarepa's life story, I read it again and again. It really benefited me. And I really saw how through reading those life stories, faith and trust really can arise in the mind. And so what happens when faith and trust arise in the mind is that, so the obscuration in the mind, what we call the obscuration, is the doubt in the mind. And through faith and trust, doubt is eliminated. So then you realize that all the Buddhas are actually one. So that is, they all are an embodiment of the three jewels. So that is the ultimate result. So how you see one Sangha is that their body is the Sangha, their speech is the Dharma, and their mind is the Buddha. And in this way, one can also recognize that the Buddha nature of self and others is actually Buddha. Their mind is actually Buddha. And then this is how you become free of doubts. So when you understand that, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, your own mind, the Guru's mind, and the Buddha's mind are one. That's when you realize that one mind is the Buddha, and the Buddha is like space, or it is like an ocean.
Sanjo Semjo Rinpoche Marje Bana Jijoje Jiba Nyamba Miboya Onre Gomde Bewayo.
Fujiche Rinpoche Kandenshe, thank you so much. I heard some stories from Adi Rinpoche in Nangchen of these things, but now we've heard the whole story. Thank you so much. Our group is very grateful.
Thank you.
Kandenshe Rinpoche. Fujiche.